All right, guys, day 2 of our Pong game. Probably not going to do this in the same order we did it in class, but it'll be close enough. First thing we're going to do is code our timer. So to do that, we're going to come over here. We're going to choose clock 1 and when clock 1 timer. The whole point of this entire block is to make it so that your timer will count down by 1 second. So we're going to go up to variables and we're going to set our global timer. And we need it to count down by 1. So kind of like we did with the score yesterday where we counted up based on the previous score. This time we're going to grab a math block and we're going to subtract. And we're going to say to get our current global timer, that goes in the first one. And then we need to subtract 1 every time. So we're going to go over here and we're going to subtract a 1. Just like with score, this is your internal timer, so now we need to set our external label to show that. So down here, we're going to grab our timer, and we're looking for timer.text. We're going to put that one in here, and just like with score yesterday, we're going to join those two together so that we can join the word timer with our actual timer variable. All right, so here we have our timer, we take away a second, and we show that on our screen. Those are those 2 lines of code. Next, we need to tell it that if our timer equals 0, we need to end the game. So we're going to go to an if then else. First off, under if, we're going to go to math with an equal sign. And we're going to tell it that if our timer, so if we get our timer, and if that equals 0, 0 means that the game is over, we have won. We need to tell our timer itself to turn off. If we don't write this line of code, then our timer ends up going negative. So we're going to go if timer equals 0, we need to set clock enabled. And we're going to go up to our logic and say false. So we're saying, hey, make the timer turn off. Then we also need to tell our puck to stop moving, which is our speed. So we're going to go set puck speed. We're going to set that to 0 as well. The last thing we're going to do is set our background image of our canvas to the You Win screen. So go to Canvas 1, find the dark green for background image. And we're going to set that to youwin.png. If you accidentally choose win.wave here, then your game is going to crash whenever you win. Like your tablet will tell you that the app companion stopped responding because App Inventor doesn't know how to set an image to a sound. So this one has to be a PNG. Now, if our timer is not at 0, we need it to keep firing. To do that, we go back to clock and we tell it that else we need to set the clock timer enabled to true. So it'll run, it'll stop at 0, or else it'll keep running. We also have some sound files. With our sound files, which is the win.wave, we want to make sure that that only works if our sound box is on. So if you remember, on our designer view, we have this checkbox 1, or you might have changed it to say sound on with a question mark. I just changed my text to say that, but my component is still named checkbox 1. So in here, we're going to grab another if then. And this one is going to go underneath the set canvas 1 background image to You Win, because this is something that we want it to check for only if the timer is at 0. Then we're going to go to our checkbox, and we're going to say that if our checkbox is checked, so we're saying if the sound is on, then that's when we want to go and pull our player 1 to set the source, which in this case is win.wave, and we're going to tell the player to play. Check this code on your tablet before you move on to make sure that your timer is working. Okay, when you've checked that to make sure it's working, come back, start the video again. Since in that timer we just did this if checkbox is on to sound, we might as well finish the other sounds that we've already built to make sure those only work on the checkbox as well. That needs to happen in puck collided with. You can see I wrote the code for that here. It also needs to happen on the edge reach if we lose the game, and you can see I already wrote that code here. This one you have to be a little careful with because your background image does not go inside the checkbox. So make sure that you keep those separate. When you're done making sure that your checkboxes work, come back and we will write the reset button. All right, for the reset button, we're going to go reset, and when reset, click. That one's going on here next. When our reset button is clicked, we want our puck to go back to its original starting location. So we're going to go to puck, find the purple one that says move to, and we need it to go to the top center of the page. That means that our X needs to be half of the width of our canvas. So we're going to go to map, and we're going to grab a divide, put that on here. Then back on canvas, we're going to find canvas width, which is almost at the bottom. That goes in the first box, and we need that divided in half. So we're going to grab a math and put a 2 there. Our Y location is dependent on your tablet. So to get your Y location for right here, I'm going to put my number there so I'm ready for it. I have to go back to my designer view. Now my puck for my particular game says that my Y value is 56. Whatever this number is on yours, that's the number that you're going to come back over here and type into your Y box. So now when I hit reset, the puck moves back to the top of the screen. The next thing I need to do is tell my timer and my score to go back to these original numbers. Because if I'm hitting reset, then the game's already over and these numbers have changed. So I'm going to go to my variables and I'm going to say set my score back to 0. And I'm going to set my timer. For me, it's at 15. You guys are probably going to be at 30 for this one because you have to have time to actually play your game. So I'm going to set my score and my timer. These are only internal scores and internal timers, just like we talked about before when you were actually taking away time or adding points. We need to also set our displays for those. So I'm going to go to my score over here, and I'm going to say set my score text. I'm going to join those together with the word score and my variable. And then I'm also going to do that to my timer. So I set my text for my timer to join the word timer and my variable for timer. All right, make sure those work by testing it. The last thing we need to do is when we hit reset, we need to put our background back to our original air hockey table because yours is probably either on the win or the lose screen. So I'm going to do set canvas 1 background image 2. Mine defaults to collision.wave. I know that's wrong. Mine is called airhockeytable.jpg. Yours is probably a bunch of numbers. So to find out what your background image is actually called, come over here to your designer, click on your canvas, and it's whatever the number is over here. Mine's air hockey table, so my reset button is now good to go. Last thing we need to do. Right now, when you first load your game, your timer is going to start counting down automatically rather than waiting for your start button. So you're going to click on screen 1. The third one down is screen 1 initialize. That means that when your app first connects to the tablet, first loads, anything like that, we need to set our clock to false so that our clock does not start as soon as we start our load. So we're going to go set clock 1, timer enabled. We're going to go back up to logic and say false. Okay, that's all the code we did together as a class. The last part of your rubric says that after a certain number of seconds, you get to decide something needs to happen to make your game more difficult. Your possibilities include that the puck moves faster, A second puck will start moving and both of them need to be kept off the bottom edge. Maybe your stick shrinks. We don't really care what it is that makes the game harder as long as you have it. You're going to do that in your clock 1. So in clock 1 right now, we have the if timer equals 0, all these things happen. If you want something to change based on the time in your game, you would put another if global timer equals, say, 15. You could set the puck speed to something different than your original 5, or you could set your stick size to 50%. Something needs to happen to make it harder, and that if then, you're going to want to put right about here, because you're always going to hit halfway through before you hit 0. So this if then is something that's completely on you. It's not something we're teaching in class that will get your game to be harder at some point.